Hi, everybody. I realized that we have not introduced the podcast in the last like three episodes as I was editing them. Um, so let's start with that. Hi, this is Ice Cream You Meme. We're a podcast about the internet and spooky stuff on the internet, and the internet being spooky. We're nailing down the exact details still, but we're getting there.
We're getting there. I didn't even notice that we don't introduce ourselves anymore. We're like, you know who it is.
We're just so confident now. We're like, you already know. You already know, baby.
What? On the feed right now, we're like 10 episodes deep. You should know who it is. What is this? This is episode 14. If you still don't know who we are, this is your first episode. Very brave. Very brave. Mm-hmm. But I am JD, and the other person is Ben.
I'm Ben. Hi. Yeah, we've been doing this podcast for a minute. So welcome to the party. And today, I think today I'm feeling like my portion may get spicier. This was one where I was writing it, and I was a little bit more nervous about my phrasing and like implicating people and like that kind of thing. So it deals with like a Sonic OC drama, like the fandom drama, and so it's like a thing where I'm like, I'm gonna tread very carefully here. So I'm gonna say that up top. We
don't have a team of lawyers just yet.
We have no lawyers, and I don't want to get like beefed with by people who are like very into Sonic the Hedgehog. I think it's a great game series.
Yeah.
That's my position. And
I also agree that it's a great game series, and I love the sounds of it. I think Sonic has some of the greatest game soundtracks I have heard of lately, but also, you know, that's it, period. And I'm not gonna get into it before Ben is, period.
No, that's fair. Well, okay, we're kind of getting into my topic. You want to just roll into it? Because my first question was going to be how you felt about our friend Sonic the Hedgehog.
Just go ahead. Let's get that.
Okay. Because I know we share a lot of like feet pics of Sonic back and forth, so you know, we have some familiarity with Sonic.
I think even at one point there was some entertainment of getting like Garfield and Sonic tattoos where it was like Sonic as Garfield and Garfield as Sonic. So we're not like anti-Sonic people. Like we have a rich history of Sonic memes and also like just liking Sonic in general.
Yeah, and we're chronically online people, and I feel like Sonic is one of the most chronically online characters.
Yeah. He's
so entrenched in internet culture. Yeah, so my thing is on a figure called Sonic.exe. And it's based on a story of a Sonic obsessive whose insatiable desire to chase the golden rings and go fast set them on a path towards destruction and madness. So Sonic.exe is a creepypasta, and it's also the name of the starring entity. The entity is also called Evil Sonic X, Demonic Sonic. It refers to itself as God, and the name may be getting changed to Xenophanes. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. There's a little more details on the last one, but we'll get there. But let's start with the creepypasta. The story was originally posted on August 9th, 2011 by JC the Hyena. JC the Hyena was inspired to write this story by an edited screen capture of the title screen of the 1991 Sonic the Hedgehog game. And so I'm going to share that image with you. And let me know when you've got it up.
I flinched. Oh my god, I swear we had this on GameCube at least. But this is very familiar to me. I hate the eyes. I hate the eyes.
Yeah, this is like the OG 91 Sonic screen. It's like Sonic doing his little finger wag, but it's scary. Look at that, like the little ocean sea thing is like red like blood, and his eyes are bleeding and they're black, and his like pupils are red, and so it's like spooky, and like it says Sega 666, so that's extra scary right there. So this was the muse that JC the Hyena used, and sometimes he said that he actually created this image as well. There's some that's pretty kind of a dubious claim. It seems like probably not, but that's his inspiration. So from this, JC the Hyena crafted the story of Tom, Tom was a kid, like any other, with a deep love of Sonic the Hedgehog, especially the early Sonic games. Tom had played them all, and was known by his friends as a bit of a Sonic buff, but he'd never played any hacked or glitched versions of the Sonic games. One day, Tom got a surprise package in the mail from his friend Kyle while he was playing Sonic Unleashed. In the package, Kyle had written, "Tom, I can't take it anymore. I had to get rid of this thing somehow before it was too late, and I was hoping you'd do it for me. I can't do it. He's after me, and if you don't destroy this CD, he'll come after you too. He's too fast for me. ... Please, Tom, destroy this godforsaken disc before he comes after you too. It's too late for me. Destroy the disc, and you'll destroy him. But do it quick, otherwise he'll catch you. Don't even play the game. It's what he wants. Just destroy it. Please. ... Kyle." So Tom examines the discs. It's a CD with the words Sonic.exe in marker. Tom doesn't think that it looks like Kyle's handwriting and deduces that someone else must have given Kyle the disc. But seeing the name Sonic, Tom knows exactly what he has to do. Yeah, and he guesses.
Play it? Oh, Tom.
Exactly, yeah. Tom's gotta. He's a fan. Tom is hella juiced to get his Sonic on. Tom gets it running, and at first it looks like it's a port of the original 1991 Sonic game. But when Tom hits start, there's a sudden flash, and the image warps. The sky becomes black, the title emblem rust. Sega 1991 turns into Sega 666, and the sea turns red with hyper-realistic blood. And then Sonic also warps into the twisted, black-eyed version of Sonic we all know and fear. Tom bravely writes it off as a glitch and sits through 10 seconds of a black screen. And when the screen comes back on, it's a similarly warped version of the character's select screen from Sonic the Hedgehog 3 this time. Uh-oh, the worlds are crossing. But even more than the blood-red background, what freaks Tom out is that Sonic is not a selectable character. Instead, Tom can pick from Tails, Knuckles, or Dr. Robotnik, sometimes called Dr. Eggman, Sonic's nemesis. How could this be? So Tom bravely continues on. He selects Tails. Upon loading into the classic Green Hill Zone, which is the first zone of Sonic 1991, things seem almost normal, aside from the red palette swap and seemingly reversed music. As Tom guides Tails forward, he notices that the level seems to be nothing but flat ground. Tom continues along the flat ground for 5 minutes, which is a really long time to just be going in one direction with one button, and then the music begins to slow down, as does Tails' pace. Gradually, the animals that Sonic is meant to protect begin appearing on the screen, only they're mutilated. JC the Hyena gets into some Happy Tree Friend descriptions here. I'll be leaving those out. As Tails walks through the carnage, he looks shocked and horrified. But suddenly, Sonic appears on the screen, and it seems that everything might be alright. Tails brightens up. But as he approaches Sonic, Sonic doesn't respond. He's just standing there with his back to Tails and his eyes closed. But as Tails gets close, the sound of static begins to grow, and finally, when Tails is a few pixels away, Sonic's eyes open, revealing black eyes with red pupils. The screen flashes black, and then Tom gets a direct message. "Hello, do you want to play with me?" Tom is terrified, but he decides to...
Do you want to play a game?
Mm-hmm. There's some JC the Hyena pulls from a lot of things, I think. There's a lot of pop culture references. If you read into the subtext, the screen now says hide and seek, and Tails is dropped into a world of flaming trees and terror. Tails runs, but Sonic appears flying behind him. That's a big deal in the story. He's actually flying. Sonic can't fly, as we know.
He's a runner.
He's a runner. Star. But now, Sonic's whole thing is going fast, and with the power of flight, Tails has no chance. See, Tails is usually the flyer between the two of them. Sonic catches Tails as he cries on the ground, the screen cuts to black, and then the message is, "You're too slow. Want to try again?" So Tom can't believe how this hacked game splits from Sonic canon. It's really shocking to him. Sonic is supposed to be the good guy, famously. Tom continues, and he refuses to accept the loss of Tails until the character select screen, where Tails is no longer selectable, and instead he's at the top of the screen, with a face frozen in terror with black, bleeding eyes. Ooh. Tom chooses Knuckles, and the level loads as "You Can't Run." This time, after running, Knuckles is forced into some kind of boss fight against Sonic, but it's impossible. Sonic can teleport. He's everywhere and nowhere. Finally, Knuckles collapses defeated. Sonic pounces, cut to black. And then it says, so many souls to play with, so little time, ... Would you agree? Tom turns the game off. This is too much for him. So we're at kind of a pausing point of the story. How are you feeling so far? Pretty shook up?
Yes, because I don't know, it makes me think of like, because I did Ben Drowned, and like I'm kind of like connecting with like the elements of like scary media, creepypasta, like weird video game, weird like versions of videos, and I'm like, I can track like comparatively like the Ben Drowned and then this kind of thing, but like I do think that this is a little bit more eerier, because like you do have the like my thought is like that Zelda game everyone says is kind of like already creepy. You don't expect creepy from like Sonic games. So that's where this turns to me. And I'm like, this is very interesting, and I might read this after we
It's a little more twisted, right? It's a little more crazy. Yeah. So there's some similarity between Ben Drowned, and we'll get to that in a little bit too. But Tom, he's trying to sleep, but he's haunted by what he's seen and his inability to save Tails or Knuckles. Finally, he gets to sleep, and he dreams of being chased by Sonic, who warns him that he will be joining Tails, Knuckles, and his friend Kyle soon. Tom wakes up, and he knows what he has to do, and he guess.
Keep playing? Oh my god.
Exactly. Yep. He's got to do it. There's no way out but through. Tom chooses the final option, Dr. Robotnik. As Dr. Robotnik walks down a bloodstained hall, red static begins to fill the screen. And as he reaches Sonic, the screen is completely covered in static for 15 seconds before flashing to black. Then suddenly, Sonic appears up close. His red pupils appear to stare directly at Tom, and he smiles, revealing an impossibly wide mouth filled with sharp teeth. The screen cuts to black. And then, 3 words. I am God. Static again. The screen flickers, showing Sonic's face again. And then the words, ready for round 2. Tom. Oh, Tom hears a laugh behind him. He loads the game. And this time, all the characters are blacked out. Then, the computer shuts itself off. Eventually, Tom is able to get the computer back on. But then he hears a voice behind him. Try to keep this interesting for me. Tom. Tom turns around and sees that one of his many, many Sonic plushies is sitting there staring at him with blood coming out of his eyes. And that's the end of the story. That's as far as it goes. There's nothing else. So, not the strongest finish, I would say.
Yeah.
It's a little sudden. So it garnered some criticism, such as this comment from Big Balls Boy. If I saw the plushie, I would just burst into laughs like I did while reading this. Then throw it out the window. Easy. But despite the heavy criticism, the story grew in popularity. And about a year later, a user named, I'm not sure how to read this really, it's probably Miss Crimson, MY5T Crimson, released a playable version of Sonic.exe on the indie game site Game Jolt. So it kind of just, you play through the story as it's described in the creepypasta. And then on May 5th, 2013, the story hit the big time when PewDiePie posted a playthrough. 10 years later, as we record this in 2023, that playthrough has 11 million views. For reference, that's nearly half of the average listens on an episode of Ice Cream You Meme. So that's not too bad. Not bad at all. There are also over 31,000 images tagged under Sonic.exe on DeviantArt. So Sonic.exe, pretty fairly well known. This is a huge boost to the game, especially the PewDiePie video and the creepypasta. And in a lot of ways, it's kind of the peak of Sonic.exe. So Miss Crimson followed it up with a game called Sally.exe, and that was based on another creepypasta featuring Sonic. But it was revealed that Sally.exe was a pretty blatant ripoff of an earlier video simply called Sonic all caps. So he got some flack for that and kind of like dropped the game and, was like, I'm going to leave it out there, but I'm kind of, I'm disowning this more or less as a project. JC the Hyena did kind of a JK Rowling and tried to follow up the success of the story by writing after the fact to explain canon of the character. So here's a quote explaining the origins of Sonic.exe. Many of you fans speculated that he was God, Satan, or a really powerful demon from hell, and all your interpretations of my creation have amused and entertained me. But I can assure you that Sonic.exe is none of those things. In fact, he isn't even a creation of God or the devil. He's an entirely different entity, one that created itself. You might think I'm done, but there's more to the quote. See, the creature that is Sonic.exe was created in the void, in a gap between dimensions, making him non-existent outsider in our universe. The creature was born out of pure dark matter in this void, and at the time, he was no real namesake, nor did he have an actual, describable body. It was only until he learned about our world he actually started getting a body. He learned about Sonic the Hedgehog, and was right there, and then a big fan of the series and its character, especially its character, Sonic. In some ways, I think this was meant to kind of deflect from comparisons to Ben Drowned, which JD covered in episode 4 of I Scream You Meme, Don't Fear the Player, Fear the Game. Because he was very much like, this is not a ghost. This is a horrible eldritch being, right? Ben Drowned is a haunted cartridge, and JC the Hyena wanted to make it clear that Sonic.exe was an entity who existed outside of the CD and the game. Then on January 14th, 2014, JC the Hyena released a blog post announcing that the administrators of the Creepypasta Wiki had decided to remove Sonic.exe from the wiki. This move was not taken lightly. I'm going to read the manifesto, and I've edited out some spicy language. I deeply regret to inform you all that I received some bad news. The admins of the Creepypasta Wiki have finally decided to delete Sonic.exe off of the wiki on the grounds that it was, quote-unquote, badly written and, quote-unquote, had too many cliches and, quote-unquote, was a bad example of what should be a creepypasta. Bull friggin' horseshit. As you can see, I am furious with the fact that my masterpiece, which has won the hearts of millions and has made a massive impact on the internet, is being brought down by a bunch of jealous, arrogant, redacted, furry haters. But that does not mean that I'm going to sit down and take this lightly. Nope, 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 nope. They have been messing with the bull, and now they have called out the horns. Ooh, call to arms. Listen, everyone, I need your help with this. We are at war here. I want every Sonic.exe fan who is reading this to get the word out. I want you to tell every other Sonic.exe fan out there, every fanatic, every artist, every follower of my creation about this. Tell your friends who are also Sonic.exe fans. If they have to, tell them that we have to keep the spirit of Sonic.exe alive. Make more fan art, make more videos, block the haters, praise Sonic.exe like you have never done before, build websites dedicated to his greatness. Whatever you gotta do to keep him alive and strong, just do it. The deletion of Sonic.exe from the wiki is but a minor cut on our flower of greatness, my friends. And that cut has nothing... Sorry, you're like,
you don't get to see, y'all don't get to see my face, but my whole face is, woo!
I shouldn't look up at that point. I'm sorry. And that cut has done nothing but further the spreading. We are the pollen of this flower. We need to prepare for our victory over the haters. The haters need to bleed for their crimes. Rejoice, my fellow Sonic.exe fans. Our glorious little hellspawn shall have the laugh yet. Which goes against canon, because he's not a hellspawn, he's actually an eldritch being from outside of space and time. This will be his ultimate victory, the absolute subjugation of the internet itself. So that's kind of a heavy...
That's really strong.
Claim. Yeah, going to war with the whole internet, but, that's... The man believes in his work. That's following this declaration of war. JC the Hyena started blocking anybody that criticized him, which he kind of outlined in the manifesto. He was like, "I'm not going to take any criticism." And eventually, JC the Hyena, I think like 3 years later, went back and apologized for his reaction to the removal of the story. He has since rewritten the story, and there is now an updated version posted on the Creepypasta Wiki where Sonic.exe is explicitly and classified as an Eldritch old god entity. But that rewrite came out, in 2017, and since then there's been some developments. So JD, strap in for this next part.
You should have told me way in the beginning to strap in.
Chefin. Yeah, this is all the child's
Oh
play,
my
JD.
goodness.
Perhaps child's play is a bad choice of words
Oh
for what
my
comes next.
god! Don't imply.
Allegedly,
Allegedly.
big allegedly. So this is a portion of a message that was allegedly sent on Discord, and it was posted to a Twitter user who allegedly received the message. Oh, XD, you're 14 and you want to have sex with 20.
We're gonna have to edit my audio. I legit yell. I hate that. Why are you saying it?
The mic is speaking. We're gonna have to.
You're gonna have to turn it down so hard because I have my handle on my like volume as well, and I'm trying to bring it down, but oh my god, I hate that.
Yeah, the mics are seeing red right now, and I understand, but I'll have to start again now because oh, XD, you're 14 and you want to have sex with a 26-year-old JD. With a 26-year-old magical hyena who has a macrophilia fetish? XD goes on for quite a while like that. There's like a whole conversation. There's a role play involved. It goes on. It continues. I'm just reading that.
You know what I hated about that is that I did take off my headphones, but I had your audio blasted up so high that I could still hear you going.
You can still hear it? There's no escape, JD. You have to hear this. I have to read it.
I hated that. Oh my
We're in this
god!
together.
Sometimes I don't want to be in this together.
So, JD, are you familiar with what macrophilia is?
To do with like small.
Yeah, it's like wanting to
Okay.
be a giant. So the gist of the fantasy is that JC the hyena is crushing a 14-year-old underneath his giant ass.
There are some sentences that shouldn't happen, I think. Allegedly.
Yeah. So after this thread showing the discussion was posted, another accuser said that JC the hyena had sent them porn when they were 13 years old. So there's a alleged pattern of behavior, and this was enough for Astronomiconx, who is listed as the new owner of Sonic.exe, the character, to completely cut ties with JC the hyena in July 2021. It also prompted a name change for future approved canonical appearances of the bloody-eyed Sonic to Xenophanes. So it seems like so far this change can be seen in a mod for the rhythm game Friday Night Funkin', where players compete against Xenophanes in a rap battle. But the question remains, how successful will this rebrand be? Sonic.exe is a very deeply ingrained in internet lore. As much as JC the Hyena may have gotten an ego on him about the success of his creation, he's not totally wrong that millions of people have been exposed to the character. And now that we're covering it, like a couple million more are going to know. I didn't really expect this to be the first topic that deals directly with cancel culture, but here we are. There's still tons of videos and posts being made explaining the lore, explaining Sonic.exe's powers and abilities, and kind of, it's still a very popular topic. Obviously, we're covering it here, but it's not until you get deep into the fandoms that you really see any discussions about JC and the need to change the character. So I'm not sure where it's going to go because it is kind of so niche into it. Like none of the stories are like about what was going on with the creator behind the scenes. So there's I understand that there is a move to change the character and distance it from the original creator. But this is the internet we're talking about. And so there's also a move to not do that, right? So while I was doing research, I found this EXE Oracle wiki. The wiki has 2 pages, one of which is about Sonic.exe parentheticals JC the hyena. The page was created in November 2022. And the page opens with this paragraph. Sonic.exe, or X, not to be confused with Lord X, is the original character, not to be confused with Xenophanes, created by JC the hyena, while Astronomiconx I should have tried to read that before. Now owns Sonic.exe, we have chosen to keep him and Xenophanes separate. And the page also features several depictions of Sonic.exe created by JC the Hyena. It's a small page on a small wiki, but from the page's history, there have been 3 editors who are very deep into the Sonic.exe fandom that are making change and have been updating it for months. It's being updated. Like the last update was like a month ago. So if I had to bet on how this schism develops, I think that Sonic.exe is going to remain the standard name for casual Sonic enjoyers. But I think that the never expanding world of Sonic OCs is going to make room for Xenophanes. Yeah, and in closing, and on a lighter note, I would like to invite you, JD, and all of our listeners to Google your name followed by the Hedgehog and see what comes up. See what the Sonic OC fandom community has provided to you, because they are an incredibly creative group. And I'm going to apologize because I want to show you.
Oh my God, I'm ready. I'm ready.
Ben the Hedgehog. And I apologize because I have to.
Let me look at mine as well.
My machine gun keyboard. All right, there's mine. There's Ben the Hedgehog.
Oh God. Oh yeah, love me some DeviantArt. Oh wait, I love the color on this. Okay. Oh, someone.
Is that forest green, baby?
Someone has already Googled JD the Hedgehog, so thank you. It wasn't me. Okay, JD the Hedge. Okay, I spelled it wrong. 2. JD the Hedgehog. Oh, I kind of love mine. I'm kind of into it. I Googled it in my. I Googled it into my. Hold on. JD the Hedgehog. I kind of am into mine. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so Ben the Hedgehog, for our listeners, is green, and he has a single earring and the scar over his eye. And then JD the Hedgehog.
I'm kind of into mine. Mine is also green.
Also forest green. I like that we're paired up. You got like a nice. Is this like a jumpsuit?
It's like very on.
Kind of some coverall.
Yeah, that's very on brand for me for like the jumpsuit, and it's got the glasses on too. Yeah.
It's kind of glad. That's not bad. So thank you, Sonic OC community, for always delivering. Whatever your name is, it's like like the keychain thing. They're like way better than like way the keychain better. Thing
I'm
where
loving
you,
this.
Go to buy it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I'm I mean, okay, I have a basic name. I'll admit, Ben. I can find a keychain, generally speaking. But for the people out there who can't, the Sonic OC community will provide.
100%. I think you should also look it up because. My full name, I can't find that. My second name, I can't find that. JD is also equally as hard. But this is very fulfilling because I loved mine. Yeah.
And there's somebody who's passionate about it. So thank you, Sonic OC community. And big shout out for the kind of the work that is going on in that community around Sonic.exe, Xenophanes, around the checking of your community.
Yes.
I'm looking out for the
Thank you to JD the Hedgehog, who that's their username. So they're also JD the Hedgehog. We are JD together. Kind
of. Shout out to the twin JD. Shout out to the other band that created Ben the Hedgehog as well.
Yeah. I like the story just in general, but I did kind of think of like, how everyone's fuck J.K. Rowling. Okay, fuck her. Fuck you. Just get into it. But it's like the question of like, can you separate the art from the artist? Because art history wise, there's a lot of people that I started admiring, and then getting through college, like finding out more about them, I was like, oh, okay, so I can't deal with you anymore, no matter how much I like you. Mm-hmm. Like for some people, for some of my friends, it's kind of hard for them. One of my friends is really super into this musician that I am not because of pure hate and something like that. But she's very like, and I'm like, you know what? You do you, but also I'm doing me. It's very fast for me to like, if someone implies this person did something, I'm like, okay, then I don't need that anymore. I'm going to go find someone else. But that's because like, I've practiced it. Like, there's like, my friend and I were talking about like, this is a separate friend, but there's like this one streamer, I'm going to say right now, German985. If like they ever do anything bad, my friend was like, I think my life is gonna be over if they do anything bad. Because like that, I've been watching them since I was like in like high school, middle school, and like that kind of thing is like the whole like attachment to it. And I'm sitting here sometimes I'm like, if this artist ever does anything bad, I'm going to have a grieving period and then do something else. But like some people can't do that. But like can the question of like separating the art of Sonic.exe from the actions, alleged actions of JC Hyena is like, that's a thing that this community, this fandom has to go through and sort of like examine it. Like, can you do that? Because like the casual reader, enjoyer of Sonic.exe might not know it. So they're just like, wow, what a cool story. But like the fandom has to examine itself of like, we are attached to this thing that allegedly happened, and can we like move forward with this by giving someone else new ownership of the thing and then changing up certain things. But
right. And this creator who is still very much involved in the community and still is within it and very much, active too. Where, I think in our history, it's a little easier to kind of write off because it's like, oh, this person's dead. Like, they're goodbye, you're done.
Yeah. I also was thinking about the follow-up story of like explaining away what like Sonic is in terms of like moving it away from like the bend down aspect. But like I was thinking like can like over explaining this like thing make it like not make it like obnoxious, because you're just like, oh yeah, they're not an entity of any sort, they're like they created themselves. Can it make it no longer creepy? It's like over explaining a joke. Could you?
Right. I feel like there's like a thing where like it happens. Like I kind of called out J.K. Rowling for that as well, because I think like she's very prone to doing that. Where it's like, oh, now Dumbledore's actually gay. I didn't put it in the book at all, but he's gay, and of course it's canon. And it's like, well, is it canon because you didn't write it in there? So calling you out, coward. Like, what's going on? I think that there's a certain amount where people feel like they have. It's another thing where it's the question of how much power the artist has over their creation. How much can somebody kind of dictate the nature of their art, and how much does the community have in terms of that as well, in terms of the users? Because I think that, if you want to say that whatever JC says is canon, is the truth of it, that's fine. But he also, it was not included in the original creepypasta. So when you're trying to decide canon, where do you go? Is the author the authority, or is it the work itself? And I personally generally think that it's the work itself, because I don't think you should have to like look to all these other sources to try to explain what something is. So, maybe you should have made Dumbledore gay, and maybe you should have explained that Sonic.exe is a eldritch entity in the story, rather than creating a secondary post. But that's just,
Yeah, I kind of agree with that, because sometimes it does feel like retroactively hijacking your own work for like, because you're like, sometimes it can come off as like, oh, I saw that on the internet, but actually now I'm claiming it as true kind of thing. Yeah.
Right.
So
yeah. I mean, it's like the thing is like the work is kind of set in stone, right? Like you can't necessarily go back and change the work, but you can kind of be like, well, I'm going to add on to it. And I think it's a thing that like authors throughout history have done. But I think it's like a hotly debated topic as well, because it's like, well, you shouldn't be able to do that. Like, you've said what you were going to say. Maybe you can write a new edition and change it, but the old edition is still out there. And if it's not inherently in the text, then it's not canon. Like, you can't say that what your intention was if you didn't include it in the story.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So.
Oh, God. What a story, what a talk. Because I think I've seen Sonic.exe in like our travels through the internet, trying to figure out like what we should be doing for the show, right? But I've never read the story. I didn't know all of this. So like, as I'm not so casual about it anymore, even though I haven't read it. But I think it's an interesting topic. It touches on a lot of things that I really enjoyed, which is questioning of like art from the artist kind of thing. And then just like, I don't know, I really like this one. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. And I know that we're sticking with the art history too in this
I love that
episode. So
I love that. Yeah. But yeah, very cool. Very good. Yeah. That you good?
I'm good. I'm ready. I have the PowerPoint presentation
Yeah, I
that
have
you
the
sent me.
PowerPoint presentation. For everyone else, that's going to be available in text. I formatted a fucking Google Doc for you. You better fucking look at it. But yeah, we're going to go for a light this time around. There's no, as far as I know, accusations toward this person. So we're going to be all Gucci, and I'm not going to say any terrible sentences that make you want to rip your ears out, Ben. Okay, so for this one, I'm extremely glad to be able to use my art history degree for the script because it helped me bring out like my old ass art history texts and realize that I cannot, for the life of me, like immediately define classicism off of my head because like my brain kept automatically correcting it to like classist, which is like the sociology degree like battling with me. So now I just have to work on like where archaeology and linguistics like fit into this. So I'm looking forward to that time. But with all that being said, we're going to get into it. Starting in the 1980s with The Sun, the newspaper news organization, who you might know as an incredibly reliable source of news for everyone who has knocked their head into a wall at one point. They released a story called Blazing Curse of the Crying Boy. So in this, Ron and May Hall experienced a devastating house fire that ruined their beloved home. Despite everything being absolutely fucked, there was one thing that seemingly survived all of this: a painting of a crying boy. Ooh. According to Dr. David Clark, associate professor in the Department of Media Arts and Communication at Sheffield Hallam University, the story grew from there, and with the help of Ron Hall's firefighter brother, who then stated that he knew a bunch of other instances that were similar to this, a house fire with a surviving crying boy painting, and many other media outlets who gave the story after, it grew from like Ron Hall's firefighter brother and all the other media houses going like, wait, a story, that kind of thing. I'm going to go ahead and encourage everyone to read The Curse of the Crying Boy as written by Dr. Clark, as it's a beautiful dive into how the media can play a huge role in fear mongering, something that we talk a lot about on the show. He basically like wrote a perfect script for me to read off about how the story came about, how the story spread, and how people attempted to control it, and how the story still goes and goes without question or further investigation. He even discussed how he played a role in the revival of the story after being invited onto Most Haunted, a show that I have watched many times over the past couple of years. When they investigated the crying boy, so you know the game, Creamies, Ben, he played the role of like a reliable journalist in the haunted ghost investigation show that convinces you to convinces you about the reality of it by simply providing facts that can be twisted into a story by the showrunners. Yeah, he may have had the best intention to provide like this historical information, but what they did with it was beyond his control. So with Dr. David Clark's examination, where can I go with this, right? He's already done this beautiful work about media, controlling of the story, I am instead going to talk about the art of haunted and creepy ass paintings. Let's go.
Great.
Okay.
Bring out the boys.
Bring out that art history degree. So, okay. If you are someone who isn't familiar with the crying boy, let me use my art history degree for once in my life, outside of making replica fan art, to get you right and ready. The Crying Boy is one of a series of paintings by Giovanni Bregolin, whose real name is Bruno Amadio, that depict young, crying, tearful children. The basic composition and makeup of these paintings are of a child, it can be a boy or girl, from mid-torso or shoulder up, looking straight at you. They are not crying in these paintings specifically, but they are teary-eyed and have a teardrop coming down from their cheeks. Ben, on the presentation that I gave you, I need you to go to number 3, slide number 3. You are basically here. So this is one of the Crying Boy paintings by Giovanni.
Love it. Do not love it.
Yeah. So according to, and if you're listening, it's on the Google Doc. This is the specific one I'm referencing, and you'll know why I'm specifically referencing this one right now. Okay. So according to a Bregolin-focused website, Bregolin followed classicism, which is painting mainly in a rustic. He followed classicism, meaning that he painted in a rustic and realistic style. For those unfamiliar with classicism, this is art that follows Greek and Roman values, meaning they are aspiring to the qualities of restraint, balance, and rational order, exemplified by the ancient Greeks and Romans. Think of, if you want to Google something immediately, think of Oath of the Herati, and 1786 by Jacques-Louis David, or The Golden Ratio. Like The Golden Ratio, y'all know what that is, a little diagram that looks like a little shell kind of thing. Yeah. But let's now talk about the specific crying boy that is embroiled in all of this drama, because the funny thing is,
I have a question about, when was Giovanni Brigolin doing his thing?
The
1980s. Okay, yeah, I thought this looked like thrift store art to me. That's what I was thinking. I was like, I would see this at a Goodwill.
So this was he did this like 1950s, 1960s kind of thing. He died in 1981. So he was 1911, born 1911. So it does follow that sort of like, if you saw this in the thrift store, you're like, yes. That kind of thing. But let's now talk about the specific thing, because the funny thing is that this is like, there is a series of paintings, like I told you in the beginning. So it varies like what sort of crying boy is haunted. There is a specific crying boy that's listed on the wiki page, which is the one that you're looking at right now, or the one that I showed you. And there's the others that are featured on the Mirror's report about the Jolly Angler pub in Manchester, and a whole bunch of other ones. So Ben, if you go to slide number 2, you will see that it's just like the idea of like, this is a crying boy painting that's haunted. But all of these are different crying boys from the Crying Child series by Giovanni. So it's not...
Gotcha. And one of them is actively being set on fire, it looks like. Is that what's happening in that picture?
Yeah, we'll have a chat about that one in a sec. But yeah, I'm going to be specifically talking about the one featured on the wiki page, which is the one that Ben is looking at, the brown little tunic sepia crying boy, and then the one that Steve Punt burns on his show Punt PI, which is the one that Ben that you saw, which is actively burning. That's the one on Steve Punt's show Punt PI, which they actually did some deep research about the painting itself, going as far as burning the copy. In this picture that you're looking at, we see a painting of a half-turned young boy dressed in a blue coat. He's looking directly at you. As this is a photo of the painting, the tones look a little bit more blue. However, in the episode, it's like a little bit more warm brown. So basically, it's like you're viewing it as a picture of a picture. It's a simple portrait of a young boy. But on the wiki page, which is the one that Ben looked at, kind of got thrift store feelings about, is a specific young boy, probably a toddler, looking forward but off to the viewer's right shoulder. The boy is depicted with tears and a slight frown. The painting is warm toned, but then again, you're seeing like a photo of a photo. The figure is proportional and realistic, calling back to classicism with the whole like balanced rational order kind of thing. And it's certainly a bit more evocative than the other example, which is just kind of like a boy looking at you. However, on the Brigolin website, we have a different coloring. So at least that lends some sort of credence to all of those people who say, visit museums, because it's a different feeling from seeing them online, from seeing a picture of it, right? Everyone has different tones on their computers, like what pixels come through. Is your computer more cool toned and all that stuff? One thing I will reassure you, though, is that these will never be in my possession due to the subject matter, but also I'm a bit of a check-in. You are now, Ben, on the slide of the PowerPoint that has the multiple. So number 2. Okay. So I'd like to bring up the fact that I kind of already discussed is the fact that this specific painting that it is, like, you can't narrow it down, because like you see, like they're holding on the original newspaper from the Sun, it's a different crying boy. On the Punt PI, it's a different crying boy. On that, in the pub burnings, it's a different crying boy. And then the one that the person with a hat is holding is a different crying boy. So now that you have seen at least what these paintings look like, you may think to yourself, they're not even scary, JD. Tell me what the fuck is going on. Right. But before I get too deep into the crying boy, let's look at haunted paintings in general. With the help of Moon Mausoleum's Cursed and Haunted Paintings article, I'm going to walk you through some well-known paintings. It's at this moment that I'm going to invite you to think of some commonalities, some differences, and really pay attention to the descriptions and ideas that I give you in these 4 paintings. Ben, please go ahead and get to slide number 4. And then from
number 4.
And then from there, I want you to take at least 3 seconds to look at each slide. And then go back to number 4. So just go through 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Take some 3 seconds, just look at it, and then just think about them, and then keep the thoughts to yourself. Okay.
Gotcha. I have a question. Were the boys painted in like asbestos or something? Or like, where are we going with this? Like, it was the 50s.
Not yet. Yeah. Just you wait, Ben.
Okay. Okay, number 2.
Mm-hmm.
The Rain Woman. Mm-hmm. 3. The Dead Mother. Uh-huh. Go through number 7 or number 8?
Well.
Okay. Number 7. Untitled. Number 8. Yes, the Hands Resist Him. I definitely, that name is familiar.
All right, back to number 4. So I want you to just keep hold of the feelings that you felt and the thoughts and those moments that you stared at them, and hold on to them as I go through these paintings. Okay, so we are going to go now back to slide number 4, which is Man Proposes, God Disposes by Edwin Landseer, and created in 1864. Sorry, I need new glasses. What's up? Okay, so this painting features, for you listening, not looking at the doc, which you should look at. This one's really image heavy, right? Perfect for a podcast.
Yep. Perfect for podcasting.
Okay, so this painting features 2 polar bears at the remains of a ship tearing it apart. At the left is a bear tearing apart fabric and a wooden pole. At the right is a bear tearing apart bones with some muscle in it. You can guess by the title and the subject matter that this is commentary on our needs as humans to make advances, and how in like nature and our environment and all that thing, and how like nature will always win one way or another, right? The lore around this is that a student once stabbed themselves in the eye with a painting and claimed that the painting made them do it. At Royal Holloway University, where this painting is held and kept, students feel an aura of doom and gloom from this painting and claim that if you sit in front of it during exam season, you will fail your exams. This ultimately led to the university draping the Union Jack flag over it to ease student fears. Then we now move on to number 5, The Rain Woman by Svetlana Telets in 1996. In this painting, we have a woman with elongated proportions. She's wearing a wide-brimmed hat and black clothing that covers most of her body with only her face showing. It is a bust-up view of a woman. She has her eyes closed, and the aura of it is a little bit melancholy and a little bit blue. The lore around this is that Telets painted this in a sort of daze and kind of didn't know where it came from. Additionally, for those who view the painting, they get insomnia and a general sense of anxiety. The people who purchased the painting claim that the Rain Woman followed them around in their house and in their dreams. Some specifically claim that they were seeing white eyes appearing everywhere they looked, resulting in them giving the painting back. According to that story, they tried to give the painting back, and even half of the money that they got from the painting or something like that. Then we move on to The Dead Mother by Edvard Munch in the 19...
The Rain Woman really gives like the Hat Man shadow figure vibes. So I see there's some spookiness there.
Okay, so now we're on The Dead Mother by Edvard Munch. In this painting, in the foreground, we have a child that's facing us, and this child has their hands over their ears. In the background, there's a woman in the bed. Our assumption, based on this title, is that this person is dead and is the mother of the child in front of us. The child is warm in color, and the woman behind the child is blue tinted. Most of the painting is taken up by the child in the front, off to the left. The lore around this painting is that it is cursed and haunts the people who have seen it. So unfortunately, I don't know if it means seeing just a picture of it haunts you or you got to see the real thing, but my bad, Ben, and everyone looking at this picture right now. The lore, the little girl's eyes apparently follow you wherever you go, and the girl even leaves the frame of the painting. So sometimes she won't be in the painting, right? Additionally, people claim to hear the sound of fabric rustling as if the woman in the bed is moving around. So that's fun. That's really cool. Then we move on to Untitled by Laura P. In this painting, we have a wagon carriage with a red top taking center stage. It is set in the outdoors. There is a barn of some sort behind this carriage. Off to the left of the carriage, we see a figure of some sort blending in partially in the background. If you look at this figure, the figure appears to not have a head. The lore of this is similar to The Rain Woman, which is that Laura was haunted in some way while she was painting this in a daze. Her stuff went missing. Shit was misplaced and moved around. Just all sorts of stuff haunted her. And then additionally, people claim that the figure in the photo and the painting haunts them. Then we go to The Hands Resist Him, which I think is like one of like the most popular haunted paintings out there. This is originally the one that I was going to do, but I was like, everyone most likely knows this. Okay. So in this painting, we have two subjects on the right. Is this the right? No, it's the left. My bad, y'all. Directions. Anyway, so they're on the left. They're in a doorway of some sort. The two subjects take up 75% of the painting on the left. They are children. Behind them is a door with windows on it. And in the window, you can see several disembodied hands. On the top section of the window, there is a circle of some sort. The lore of this is that it appeared on eBay in the 2000s due to a couple attempting to get rid of it. Much like the Munch painting, the subjects reportedly leave the frame, move around in it, and just in general get really strange. So now that I've given you some examples of haunted paintings, what can you glean from them? Ben, are you able to compare what you felt about those paintings when you first looked at them without any context versus when I gave you context? So like, yeah.
Okay, so like the boy, first of all, he looks like he's 45 years old. This is like the oldest looking child I've ever seen. Yeah, I think that having the context is definitely makes a difference in terms of the experience of these. I think probably the Rain Woman was my favorite on first look. I really liked the style and kind of like the elongated proportions and just the general vibe. It was kind of melancholy and sad, but I wouldn't have associated it with like a spooky, scary story. The first one was the Man Proposes, God Disposes, the polar bear painting. That one is definitely it's kind of like the Black Goyas a little bit, and like it's like a painting where I'm like, oh, this is like borderline kind of gory and kind of brutal. So I could definitely see this one being like creepy to college students, especially like if you're like, why is this on the wall? Like, why are we supposed to like eat our lunch or like hang out by this thing? The Dead Mother is, that one was initially also like creepy and sad. I think the subject matter in the picture, as well as the added lore of the rustling and the figure disappearing, adds to it. And then the Untitled one, I didn't even notice the figure until you begin to describe him. So that adds to the creep factor when you're like, oh, this is just like a normal painting of a little wagon, and then you're like, oh, there's like an invisible headless man kind of standing there who's like, you kind of know he's there because he's like making the thing shimmer, like you're like looking through him almost. It's creepy. It's creepy.
And you had some sort of familiarity with Hans Resist. Was that like is it like a familiar name, or you've seen this before, or?
I think I've seen it before. I didn't. I thought of it as like a potential subject because it's definitely like one of the ones where I heard about it like showing up on eBay and stuff like that. I knew the broad strokes of the story, but I hadn't really looked at the picture and looking at it again. I didn't even realize that those were actual like disembodied hands in the background or anything. So yeah, this is like my first time seeing it. I think
I have seen it a couple times before in our investigations, but also just like because I look at weird pictures online. And these days, I think because of the like sort of AI art situation, I would have thought that this was AI art, someone's very fucked up prompt, because it sort of has the uncanny nature of like, definitely someone said like old school painting style, two children, and like the sort of notoriety of like being able to identify AI art simply from like how fucked up the hands are and proportions of like everything.
Right, it's like Republican senator baby doll standing in front of the door. Like,
yes, that's like someone like reveal your prompt. It's like, yeah. So okay, so now that's kind of things like you think about how important the context is into like making something kind of scary, because like if I looked at Hans Resistum on its own, I'd be just like, this is a weird painting. Like, who fucking did this? And yeah, so let's consider the paintings themselves first, right? Many of these paintings have an element of creep factor to them, regardless of the like knowing the lore or a history behind them. So like the creep factor, like sort of like silly factor, or just kind of like, oh, this is nice and peaceful kind of thing. Hans Resistum has an element of uncanny valley that really invites you to look at it as long as you can, because like you're kind of just like, fuck is going on with this painting kind of thing. So you look at the two subjects and why they're a little bit off to you and why it's so close yet still so far from reality. Then you have man proposes, God disposes, which makes you think deeply about the two polar bears and the destruction they're inflicting on the remains before them. You get sort of like the heebie-jeebies at the idea that, like, in this destruction, there were once humans here, right?
Mhm.
There was humans on this boat. Where have they gone? Nature has won out in the end in the face of, like, the human desire to conquer and, you know, what's that? Manifest your destiny kind of ickiness, right? Then you have Untitled by Laura P., which is like a somewhat like serene scene, right? It's just like you can see this hanging on someone's wall at home or like at the thrift store, and you're just like, cool painting, I guess. But until you catch like the headless figure that blends in with the background, you're just kind of like, you're calmed and then all at once freaked out by this figure hiding near the carriage, and you wonder why it's there.
Yeah, it's like a predator in the background.
Yes. You get creeped out. Like I mentioned this a couple times already, but it's like fridge horror, which is like completely fine. And then you think about it and you're like, oh shit. Hello? Even before we get to the creepy shit that happens when you see and have the painting, there's also the element of the story of the painting itself, whether that be how the painting came about or the topic of the painting itself. For example, the subject of Man Proposes, God Disposes is the wreck of Sir John Franklin's 1845 expedition that ended in the loss of the lives of 129 men. This provides a dark history to the painting that could already stand alone as daunting and sort of haunting, with the images of the polar bear tearing apart a wreck and some like ribs. You see like human ribs, and the bear is just like having Korean barbecue going on right there, right? Adding to the background is the grisly image that gets you right on the path of like further darkness. We then have The Rain Woman with Svetlana Telets, where it's less about the history and more of how the painting came about. Telets apparently created this painting in a sort of daze after months of feeling like something had been watching her. This is much like Untitled by Laura P., where she also painted her work in a daze of sorts and was bothered by something in her home. So it's less the history of the painting, but like how it came about through the artist, what was happening to them, right?
Right.
Yeah, and then we get into the curse or haunting aspect of the paintings. Like, what do they have in common? There is one, being haunted by the existence of the painting itself, and then number two, being cursed and haunted by the subject in the painting. So being haunted by the existence of the painting isn't necessarily that the painting itself is giving you the creeps, but that the mere existence of this painting or being in the presence of it haunts the viewer or the owner. We have The Rain Woman and The Man Proposes, God Disposes as examples of this. Both simply just exist. You don't have to have them to experience the effects of haunting, right? You don't need to own them for them to impact you. The Rain Woman gets you in your dreams, follows you around, you see some eyes, and then Man Proposes, God Disposes fucks up your exam scores. You don't have to have this to experience of it. You're being haunted by this painting that's simply existing because you saw it, right? Then there's the fear and the fact that you don't even need to own this thing for it to fuck you up one way or another. There's no escaping it after you looked at it. It doesn't need to hang in your living room for you to be haunted by it. You looked, you're fucked. Everybody, I assure you, I have been looking at these paintings now for a month or so. I'm Gucci other than getting sick, but that's like unrelated to this, right? It's just
maybe, I don't know.
I have a weak immune system. The whisper of water makes me sick, okay?
The rain woman, catch a cold.
Okay. Then we have being cursed or haunted by the subject in the painting. This applies to most of the paintings. I told you about it, but I'll use Untitled by Laura P. as an example. Laura experienced disturbances in her house due to the painting and the figure in it. Then we once again have Man Proposes, God Disposes with that example of like fucking up your exam scores and then making someone stab themselves in the eye with a pencil. These commonalities exist in many of the paintings that I've seen in lists about haunted paintings, and I hope they make sense to you and that you consider them in the next time you're out trying to buy a haunted painting. Who knows, maybe I'll do up one of my own haunted doll-esque guides on how to buy them, but maybe I'm too like, chicken. Yeah, but let's, with all those like general haunted paintings, let's take a look at Crying Boy with all of this in mind, right? The painting, according to the Villains Wiki profile, which I hope is still up by the time that we get to this episode, because there was like a 3-week warning on the wiki page that was like, this page is going to come down because it's just a stub page. And I was like, hello. If it's down by the time this is out, I have the PDF file for you. It will be on Ice Cream, you mean, website, right? So don't worry about that. But anyway, according to the Villains Wiki profile, the paintings, the Crying Boy's abilities are curse, affliction, and manifestation. So curse affliction relates to the idea that if you own this, your house is bound to go down in flames, with it being the only survivor. The manifestation, I believe,
The secret.
The manifestation, I believe, relates to the fact that it manifests the flames in your house that you get engulfed in. So very cute. This crying boy painting. He's got powers. But yeah, so let's start off again with being haunted by the existence of the painting. I mentioned that for some of the examples, the mere idea of this painting existing haunts people. You might wonder, knowing the lore of this little kid, how does this aspect work with the painting? Well, I'm going to place the idea that the mere existence of this painting and the stories about it really worried a lot of people and led to mass burnings of it. The idea that someone could own this painting and then their house could go up in flames really fucked people so much. Like, they didn't even have to own it. They were just afraid of it, right? Even now, this curse haunts the painting itself, making it so that the idea of having or owning this painting can send heebie-jeebies up someone's spine. They're just haunted by this thing existing out there. Like, what if I do have it? You don't. You probably don't. If you don't remember buying it, this is a very I guess I bought a child painting. Yeah.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
let's now get into the being cursed or haunted by the subject in the painting. The curse or the haunting aspect of this lies in its apparent ability to manifest a mysterious fire in your house just because it's inside of it. The curse is so effective that even those people who hadn't experienced any effects from it were convinced enough to throw the painting away and just be free of it. The little boy's impact was so strong that it fucking shook people that hadn't even experienced a fire. The art of the haunted painting in general goes further than the creep factor due to its appearance, but how strongly you can convince people of the impact of the painting, the impact that the painting can have on your life, right? Whether it be from like looking at this painting can make you stab yourself in the eye, to seeing white eyes everywhere you go, to your house going down in flames. So now that we've talked about the art of like haunted paintings and what like makes them scary, let's now look at why people could be scared of them, right? I titled this section, A Plague on Both of Your Houses and Keeping an Eye Out for Selena. If you have ever heard Beauty and the Beast by Nicki Minaj and Justin Bieber, you know what I'm talking about. But if not, I invite you to listen to it after, because there is the best lyric ever in it. And I'm about to say it like maybe in like a couple minutes, but you will know when I say it, okay? You will know. Okay. Curses, they're just like us. They help people cope with uncertainty and explain away chaos. What does that have to do with any of this, right? Well, you know, the crying boy is haunted, but it also is specifically cursed. How? It's basically the opposite of like an evil eye bracelet, right? That my sister-in-law gave me. Instead of inviting good and warding off the bad, which specifically mine covers like inviting happiness and keeping up with my well-being kind of thing. When it comes to that, it doesn't invite good. It just, the existence of it is bad, right? When it comes to coping with uncertainty and explaining away chaos, curses can become the thing that you blame when something bad happens to you or to the people near and dear to you. According to our besties, Ken Drinkwater and Neil Dognall, who wrote, Why Do People Believe in Curses? For the conversation, people can and do use curses to rationalize the bizarre. They chalk up all the bad stuff that happened to them with a curse, to a curse of some sort, right? Further, Drinkwater, and I love that last name, Ken Drinkwater. That's a sentence. I can't. Wow. Let's email that. Let's email Ken Drinkwater. Like, have you ever heard of this? Anyway, the duo claims that people who believe in curses usually will kind of find ways to have external forces affirm their belief in the thing, right? For example, if I believe that my family is cursed, I can gather evidence based on the things that have happened on my life that are negative, right? So my brother's car was stolen. It's because our family was cursed. My uncle is missing because of that curse. I have and experience chronic illness. A lot of people in my family do. It's because the family is cursed. Think of when people like in a lighthearted way, like think of when people are saying like, it's because of that phone. It's because of that phone. Like when young people express some sort of trouble, like their eyes hurt, it's because of that phone. Your back aches because of that phone. My boyfriend broke up with me. It's because of that phone. You're always on that phone. I'm telling you. But consider the paintings that I told you about before. What are the perfectly normal, albeit terrible things that happen to people that end up getting blamed on the paintings, right? For man proposes, God disposes. Put yourself in the mind of a college student. If you are already aware of the curse of the painting, you might start to think, oh God, I'm sitting in front of it. My exam is fucked. I'm fucked, right? You completely forget that you studied. This could bring you some anxiety already. Sometimes you sit in front of a test and you forget everything that you ever fucking learned, right? This can make you think like, why would I try if this painting has already cursed me? The burden of fucking up is lifted from you because it's now not your fault, but the painting's fault. Yeah.
Right. It's like
then
curse.
Let's look at The Rain Woman and Untitled by Laura P. While painting these works, the painters both felt that they were in a daze and felt like they were not controlling their bodies. Think of yourself when you're in the zone, right? When you're writing, when you're painting, when you're cooking. Sometimes do you ever feel like you're speeding through something and it all just happened just out of nowhere, out of your control? Sometimes if you're an artist, you just sit there and paint, you're in a daze, you're like, shit, it's 3 a.m. What the fuck? That kind of thing. So because they already had some weird things happening around them when this was going on, they're like, oh, well, maybe because this painting is haunted. I'm being haunted, right? Sometimes I will feel like I drew something and it'll feel like it wasn't me because A, it turned out good, or B, it came out easily, and a bunch of other things. Instead of considering that I was in the zone and maybe I picked a decent subject that I'm familiar with and can crank out a drawing easily about, I can chalk it up to the fact that I was having some sort of out-of-body experience that was beyond me. I was possessed. Yeah.
You were the channel.
Yeah, I was like, who possessed me? Van Gogh is in here. That kind of thing, right? Additionally, the painters already had this sort of belief that they were painting outside of their control. The strange things that happened around their homes may also be attributed to the strange shit that I experienced while painting something. You could have like misplaced something, completely forgot it, but then you're like, well, I was being, so maybe something took that from me.
Right.
Basically, the strange curse or feeling can then take on the burden of all the bad things and strange things that has happened to you. The curse is why this thing happened to you, kind of thing. Let's also consider The Crying Boy and how popular this thing might have been at the peak of its production. It is a mass-produced paintings, probably at like, they're called charity stores and over across the pond. Probably this thing exists somewhere the same way that we will go into a thrift store and find random paintings of ladies in the Rococo style kind of thing. It isn't some sort of like limited piece edition that only a few people had. They were prints. They were not paintings, right? It wasn't a full painting. It was a print. Think of how many people had that in their homes. Then think of the rate / statistics of house fires during that time. I couldn't find one specifically for the 80s, but you can imagine based off the 1979 estimate of 308,000 domestic fires in the UK. That's a lot in 1979. Move it over to like 1980, maybe it lessened because I forgot when the invention of what's that thing? Smoke detectors.
Smoke detector.
Thing.
Yeah.
So now imagine the sorts of things that happen inside of these houses. 308,000 houses. They are bound to have something in common, right? Maybe like, let's say like 10,000 of those houses had a Paddington stuffed animal inside of it. If they go down in flames, are you then going to blame Paddington? Don't even think about blaming Paddington. I will show up in your house.
Right.
Banish that thought.
Banish that thought.
Right? So since The Crying Boy was mass produced and it was reported that 50,000 paintings sold in the UK alone, you know the deal of sort of like large numbers, right? Maybe like in those 300,000 homes, like 1,000 of them had The Crying Boy painting in their house, right? So if you think about the fact that when the mass burnings were arranged by the Sun, 2,500 paintings were sent in. Yeah, that's a lot, right? Consider the fact that the claim is that this painting was found at 60 house fires. Like, probably not using it right, but law of large numbers, right? Like, I think, like, statistically, this painting would have been found in at least a lot of houses. Like, think of it like, how many, like, greenhouses are there, and how many of these greenhouses may have this Crying Boy painting kind of thing? So, the question now here is like, did the 60 house fires come with a story, or did they arise afterwards? Was it like, actually my house burned down a couple of like years ago and we did have a Crying Boy painting in it.
Yeah, but it's like, why is it the only thing that's in the rubble? Why is it only the Blue Boy painting, the Crying Boy, huh?
There goes our 3% United Kingdom audience.
Yeah.
We love y'all. I swear to God. Also,
Toodaloo.
In it. Shout out to all y'all. If you want to send a Paddington piece of merch to us, just let me know. But yeah, one more thing before I go is something that I considered when it comes to haunted paintings and human subjects, which was mentioned in one of the paintings, which was that my Mac mouse ended up in my laptop. I fucking hate Apple. Stop with that continuation shit. I was like, where's my fucking mouse? I'm like, I was clicking on like our faces. Anyway, so one more thing before I go is something that I considered when it comes to haunted paintings and human subjects, right? Ben, question for you. Have you ever experienced the feeling of staring at a painting and feeling like it was following you? Because I tried to think about all the museums we have visited together back in our college days. And I remember I was like, did we see together a human painting? Because all I could remember was like one painting that had like 50 fucking 5 layers of like oil paint that like, I was like, I would like to take a bite of this. And I was like, I am going to eat this. Have you ever, do you recall ever experiencing this sort of like, this painting's eyes are following me situation?
I think there's one at the museum in Sac that we went to that's supposed to be like one of the, where the eyes follow you. I don't remember feeling like it did necessarily. I mean, I know that's like a technique, right? Is that not like something that artists would like intentionally do, right?
Yeah. That's right. Why did I say that's right? Anyway, y'all, we're going to talk about that's right, man. But yeah, y'all, we're going to talk about something that afflicts the Mona Lisa and so many other human paintings that give it like some sort of like eerie creep factor. So I'm about to say a sentence that's strange. You are not the only one. Buns out, wiener, keeping an eye out on Selena. Those eyes, they feel like they're following you. Don't worry, they don't. The general idea of this seems to be that as the subject of the painting, just like Ben said, it's like a technique of some sort. The subject of the painting is painted in a way that they are looking at you according to all appropriate methods of doing so. Basically, if they are painted to look at you, your mind makes sense of it as such, so that when you move, you still perceive it to be following you. Similarly, if they're not painted to appear to look at the viewer, i.e. Ben and I are looking at each other right now, right? Your eyes are not following me because you're looking down, right? We're not looking straight at the camera, right? If I am looking at you head on, you move around a little bit, you're like, it feels like that, right? We are perceiving it according to the information that our mind is giving. You just...
I was staring at the camera.
It's fucking staring at me. The eyes are following me.
Following you. They are.
So in a 2004 study conducted at Ohio State University supports this further with its findings that we perceive the image by way of the visual information given to us by the painting itself. If we are correctly judging a painting to be looking at us, we are going to go with that assumption as if it was a real thing happening before us. I invite you to consider this the next time you encounter a painting with a figure in it. Look at the eyes. As you move away, what does it do? And all that stuff. And don't forget to let us know through icecreamumeme@gmail.com, besties. Like, let us know and tell us what painting it was and where you went and why you didn't take us. So, TLDR. Curse paintings are freaky to look at, and curses can help us cope with the shit happening to us, right? There's an art to cursed and haunted paintings. The story of its creation, the history, and the painting itself work together to give you the heebie-jeebies, making a very involved art piece, sort of like a performance art, except you're not locked in a glass box. You're just being haunted by the painting, right? Now, with that being said, would I create a haunted painting classified buyer's survival guide to help you buy that painting you've been keeping an eye on? That's been keeping an eye out on you in return. Ooh. Well, that's for JD for several months from now to decide when we have to advertise this episode. What I can say, though, is that the closer that you believe in superstitions and curses and warding and all of that, the more you might be susceptible, not to the curse, but to believing in the curse. I am just a little stitious. You might be superstitious, but you best believe that regardless of my belief in it, I won't be buying one for myself, because no matter how much I joke about the Patreon tier haunted doll benefit, that's all on Ben. It's being sent to Ben. Yeah. Not me, baby.
I'll pass it on. I'll bet it first. But then we'll
y'all, happy buying. Go get you that beautiful haunted painting. That is me. Let's go.
Oh, that's great. Okay, so there's a couple of things. Firstly, when we were talking about looking at the camera or like painting to look at
Uh-huh.
the viewer, I heard like an anecdote about how Mark Wahlberg, piece of shit, likes to
I
like barrel the
can't.
camera in every scene he's in because he thinks it makes people feel like they're closer
It,
to him.
it makes me want to look away. Like if I immediately notice that someone is
Mhm.
like looking at me when I'm talking, I'm just like, do I look back at you? Because now we're having intimate eye contact. I'm looking at your shoulders. Rest assured, I'm looking at
Right,
your
yeah.
shoulders, everybody. Like, I can't, like, even when
Mhm.
Ben and I are talking, like, we are not looking at each other. Do not double barrel the camera, Ben. I swear to God. But it's just like you think about it in like the online workspace hybrid thing now, like,
Right.
where are you looking at in these things? Because oftentimes I'm just looking at myself, I'm like, do not make any stupid faces. Or like I'm looking at someone's like background, I'm
Mhm.
like, wow. But the eye contact, I will never be painted.
Right. You're never directly
Yeah.
looking at people or
Because
into someone's
that's very
eyes. Yeah.
intentional. I hated doing that. It's too intentional.
It's too intimate.
I'm not
Too-
getting at
too
you. I'm
close.
not doing some video
Yeah.
intimacy right now. Get out of here.
Yeah, this is starting the ASMR portion of this
Oh,
episode.
God.
Secondly, I'm sorry to Giovanni because I'm sure that fucked up his
Oh.
bag majorly. Having
Yeah.
haunted
So
painting.
like there's some links that I linked you here for like my sources that are like it still is
Mhm.
like a pervasive like idea that this painting is haunted, right? Like
Yeah,
there
right.
I have one here that's like 10 unsettling truths quotation about the crying boy painting's curse. So it isn't as factual, and a
Mhm.
lot of the myths on here are like debunked, even if it was written in 2022. I looked at it. I was like, this was written
Right,
in
yeah.
2022. Why didn't you look at what? Right, but I looked at that page for like using the number of print copies sold, which like if I assume that
Mhm.
all of these things haven't fact checked either, how am I going to be sure that 50,000 is like the correct number? But it tends to be like the
Right.
common number claimed regarding the paintings sold bought in the UK, and it's even reported in the Dr. David
Mhm.
Clark article that because of the doctor in his name, I assume is well researched that yeah, but
Sure,
these
yeah.
days you can't assume that about everybody. But yeah, so it somehow he was even embroiled in the whole thing where they said that like his painting studio went up in flames actually. The Bergolin
Right.
Weebly website that's like here's some facts about Giovanni Bergolin. It's just been saying that like, hey, this guy doesn't practice black magic. He didn't purposely make
Right.
these kids cry so he can paint them. He didn't take away their candies. The like as an assurance,
yeah.
like the tears and the crying like thing was painted after the fact. These are just like children that
Gotcha.
he hired. Yeah, so
Added
he
a
wasn't
little
making them
tear
cry.
at the
Like
end.
this whole website is like debunking, like, no, he didn't practice fucking black magic. These were
Yeah. I love that we're like the same that we've always been, where it's like he was secretly harvesting the adrenochrome of these children. Like it's the same
Right.
shit, like 50 years
they
ago.
really were, like some of this is like his painting studio was set on fire, like, and the kid's name is apparently Don Diablo, and I'm like, who is out there naming their child Diablo? Please get it together. Like
Fucking badass. Like,
like
that's
think about this. Like this was painted like in the 50s, something like if a child was named a weird name that isn't like biblical white Christian name, they're like, why is your name like that? Do you think someone like maybe because it was like whatever Italy I don't think someone's gonna actively in the 50s 60s name their child Diablo. Like you kind of sort of have the connotation of like if a child is named Damien, you're like,
yeah, we don't even trust
Yeah.
Damon. That's just from a movie. Like Diablo was
yeah,
even
like
before
hello,
that. I think.
devil, demon. Like, oh, so you named your child
Yeah.
demon, devil? Like, what's going on? But yeah, it's like I don't know. It affected his bag in the time that he was making it, but like definitely after it affected his like whole like the aura of like this man who made children cry just to paint them. His studio was set on fire, and he hired children off the streets, kind of thing. So
Yeah. He died of a broken heart.
Oh my god! But
after.
yeah. So it definitely isn't like new that we would make up like sort of stories like to think about like the previous episode that we recorded that was out. It's like the Copper Cooper family photo, which is like you have this like photo and this whole lore behind it. It's not beyond us. It's not a new thing for us to be making up stories about guys and pictures on the internet, you know.
Not at all.
It's not. And it's not a new thing that news outlets will make up a fucking story and make everyone panic over like a certain thing. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, as focused as we are on mass media or like, you know, current like internet media, I think that we can't really get away from examining old media because a lot of the same shit has been happening for decades. Like, we like to think that everything is new. There's a bit of recency bias, but we've been on the same bullshit for generations.
I was also thinking that in your section, which is like like obviously the Sonic.exe is like trying to pull away from like, I guess when it was written like Ben drowned, but like the elements of scary media creepypasta, like there are like tropes that you will follow in order to like think, because you think about like how Tom got the surprise package. It's like this weird thing of like bizarre thing. Like you think of Ben drowned, this kid went to some sort of garage sale and acquire this creepy object. You have this aspect of acquiring this object. Like, how do you then change that up to make it like a new thing without it? Like, how do you innovate on that idea? And then like, how do you innovate on like haunted paintings and haunted media kind of thing?
Right. It's like classic like horror tropes of like going to the mysterious store, getting the mysterious package, who knows why it's there. So it's very hard to escape from tropes, and I think that, again, pointing to how the original creepypasta was removed because it was full of too many cliches. Like, I edited down the story a lot, but it's very like pastiche in terms of it was just because the original one is preserved, and I do link to that in my script. But it's just like there's like lists where it's like, oh, and then Sonic laughed, but he was using Kekna's laugh from Final Fantasy, or like, you know, these like, I'm pulling from this source, I'm pulling from that source, and I'm going to tell you which sources I'm going to cite this. Oh, but like the grass was not from like the Green Hill Zone in 1991. It was from like Sonic 3 years later, and then it was built with that. So like it's very pastiche, very postmodern of just like pulling together all these disparate elements of media and fitting together and kind of
because it's like you think about it, it's like it has worked before. If it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of thing. You kind of like innovated on it a little bit by like saying like certain things, but like, you know, of what works in existing media that has scared people. Maybe you borrow from it, not like intentionally, but like knowing the sort of like, what is it, like the hero's like arc of like, this thing happens, this thing happen. Here's a denouement. Here's the plateau of the story kind of thing. So like, like drawing the line and like, it's discussed in like the Michigan Dogman thing that I had, where it's like, is it copying when it's like, or is it like the human mind of like, these are stories that we're aware of, let's build on this like human man monster kind of thing. And like, where do you draw the line of like,
for sure,
trying to be as original as possible, but also knowing that this sort of trope and this story way exists and works.
Yeah, that's a really interesting thing. Also, did you watch the Guillermo del Toro Cabinet of Curiosities? Did you? Okay. Isn't there, so spoiler alert for one of the episodes in that, the man proposes, God disposes. There's like a guy who stabs himself in the eye after looking at a painting.
Which episode was this?
Remember that? It was like the Lovecraftian one, where there's like a guy who's like painting
I skipped
monsters,
that episode.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh, you skipped that one? Okay, yeah. So sorry, it's the spoilers, but yeah, the guy at the end of the episode, there's somebody who like stabs himself in the eye after looking at the painting. So I didn't know that was based on a real thing, but that's that's an interesting motif or haunted painting kind of thing to pull
it's
from.
Like, and I also thought about like, I'm still hesitant on like maybe covering this, but like I would love to then link back to this episode. It's like the act of the surprise package for Tom from like the friend Kyle to get rid of it, which is like this you kind of then question that if you know the story of Smile Dog, which is like a picture of like a husky smiling kind of thing. And then the idea of it is that like you have this need to pass on this photo to like kill as many people or like ruin as many people's lives, where it's like when I heard that like surprise package come in, I was like, is this friend's intent to get rid of this by telling a friend to get rid of this? Or is the intent like, spread the message of Sonic.exe, where I'm just explaining it as like, I want to get rid of this, but now I'm building a story like, I want you to want to open this. And don't blame it on me because I did tell you to throw it away. But now
Sure. Yeah, and that's another, like, that's a classic horror trope too, right? Like the Harbinger, like in a slasher film or anything, it has to be like, don't go up that hill, you're gonna get killed. And it's like, you have to hear that and then say, well, fuck it, I'm going up anyway, to like justify the fact that you're gonna get killed in like a horror story. That's kind of how it's used, right? Yeah,
because like one of the easiest ways to get someone to like want to like look into it or like do something about something is like, don't go in this room.
Right. Don't do it. You don't want to look in that room.
What's that one story with like the blue whatever guy who's like, don't go into this room, and turns out like that's all his dead wives are in there. That's one of the easiest ways to get someone to look into it. The kids are like telling a child, don't touch that. They're gonna be like, but why? Grab, like, you can't have this, but I want it, kind of thing. So yeah, the underlying element of like, my brother just told me he got me McDonald's. Thanks, brother.
Oh, sick.
But yeah, nice. It's a good kind of thing, and it makes me wonder, like, in this episode alone, we're able to call back to previous episodes that we have, and I have been sitting on this question for the two of us: is that, do you think we'll ever run out of points to make, seeing as there are like current of like stories and themes that go under these things, where it's like our general thing is that we touch on like this media thing and why it scares you. Do we eventually run out of things to say? Because like, I was worried about like the haunted painting, and whether I re-listened to the Haunted Doll episode, and like whether I can say something new about like haunted things and why having haunted things. Do you think we'll run out of an original thing to say? Is that good that we might run out of like an original thing to say? What does that do to our brand?
I mean, like, the way that I guess I think about it kind of this way is that I don't think we're ever going to run out of things to cover. I don't think we'll ever reach a point, because like the internet is just going to keep churning out content. So there will always be like creepy things to examine. Maybe it's more like a classification thing at a certain point, rather than us trying to have like an original new take. But I think that we'll always have things to examine. And whether that's fitting them into a box that we built, or being like the first ones to discuss something. And it's kind of another thing where like the internet, I'm sure that we're, you can say that we're the first to discuss anything. Like, I'm sure that there's 10 million, there's 10 million people with 10 million takes. Like but yeah, I don't think that we'll run out, even if we don't necessarily have to kind of establish beyond kind of like a quick summary of how we fit into
I do
things.
think that maybe by that time, seasons and seasons below, the episodes might get shorter, because we all be like, and we said this in this previous episode, but as a summary, as a reminder, this is what we said, kind of thing. But yeah. I do think that like, I like you saying that like, we'll be sorting them into boxes that we built in terms of like the story that we're telling for this certain piece of media, or like that kind of thing, theme, thematically.
Right.
Yeah,
I think we will. The internet's never going to stop. This train's never going to stop. We're going forever. This is
right, like,
here to infinity.
Listen, y'all, media literacy kind of tanking. We'll always have something wild to be like, hey guys, stop.
Yeah, y'all, it's going with, people are, we have some job security for our podcast security, at least.
We won't be getting into repetitive stuff just yet. It'll be a long time before then.
Yeah, we're going to try to keep it fresh for y'all.
Don't worry.
So, yeah, thank you. This episode was written and produced by Ben and JD. For all our sources, please head to the website in the description below. If you would like to reach out with a comment, suggestion, or share an experience with one of our topics today, send us a message at icecreamumeme@gmail.com. All of the music for the podcast is provided by Jaeger Frank. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode.